Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, hello, my name is Alivia Brown and I am currently a fourth year undergraduate student at UCLA studying anthropology, and today, obviously, you saw the title, we are going to be talking about visual anthropology. Now normally on this channel, I talk about the main four disciplines of anthropology, and those disciplines are biological anthropology, cultural anthropology, linguistic anthropology, and archaeology. But what a lot of people don't know is because anthropology is so broad, there's actually a lot of other disciplines. There's psychological anthropology, there's medical anthropology, and there's visual anthropology. So without further ado, I'm not going to bore you with all that intro stuff. Let's just get into it. Okay, so we're going to be starting off with a technical definition. I have that pulled up on my laptop, so this is just if you were to look up visual anthropology online, exactly what you would find, and then we'll go from there and break it down a little bit. So, visual anthropology is a subfield of social anthropology that is concerned in part with the study and production of ethnographic photography, film, and since the mid-1990s, new media. Now, there's quite a few things happening in this definition, but there's two main things that I want you to focus on. The first one being that visual anthropology is a subfield of social anthropology. Now, for anyone who may not have heard of social anthropology, that's actually basically synonymous with cultural anthropology. If you want to learn more about the difference between those two things, I'll have a video about it linked right here. But essentially, it's all about understanding people and cultures and human interaction. And so if you know that that's what social anthropology is, you can begin to see that visual anthropology is actually the representation of these cultural and sociocultural studies. Now, the second part of this definition that I want you guys to be paying attention to is that this sort of study is actually through film and photography. So very often anthropologists or just researchers in general, when they accomplish something, they write it up. You know, there's a book, there's an article, or something of that sort that we as the consumer are taking in. However, in the case of visual anthropology, they are delivering, and by they, I mean the anthropologist, these individuals are delivering the things that they've learned through a different kind of media. Now, the main thing that I would want you guys to take away from this first part of breaking down the technical definition of visual anthropology is that the outcome of studying visual anthropology, and by outcome, I just mean the product that you're creating at the end of your exploration, rather than being a written work, it's actually a visual work. So a photograph, a documentary. I think you get the idea. Now, I do want to move beyond the technical definition a little bit. There are other parts of visual anthropology that I think are important to remember that are not just this textbook definition. And the first one being that visual anthropology actually has a sort of bias. And by bias, I don't mean that there's like a negative component or anything like that. I just mean that it tends to lean towards a certain type of social anthropology and cultural anthropology, in the sense that some things, some topics are a lot easier for people to understand when they are being seen versus when they are being read. So some instances of this are describing art, describing architecture, describing human emotions and how our facial features look. You can only do this so well in a book. And so basically visual anthropologists are exploring topics that can be better understood through visual media and like documentary photography and all that good stuff. Now we're going to shift a little bit. So we started off with that technical definition, moved away from it a little bit, and now we're going into some of the components that are up for interpretation. Now, I spent a good week doing research for this video so I could get the most reliable information out there to you guys on visual anthropology. And I came across this amazing paper written by Jenny Chio, I think. She is a professor at USC. Now, this paper that she wrote actually dove into what visual anthropology really is beyond that technical definition that I just shared with you all. And it kind of opened up this conversation of how visual anthropology actually isn't just one thing. And rather than it just being ethnographers, for example, going out into the field and creating a documentary about something, there's actually a whole nother way that visual anthropology can exist. And essentially what I'm getting at, what she was getting at in this paper, is that there's also this alternate option. Like, let's say you want to be a visual anthropologist, right? You could make a film about your research that you're doing somewhere. Or you could actually be analyzing films with an anthropological lens. Now, these films don't actually have to be anthropology films. I mean, you could analyze the Star Wars films, you could analyze Marvel films, you could analyze a bunch of rom-coms. I mean, whatever you can think of, it all works. So to sum that all up, because I know that's kind of confusing, I probably could have presented that better. In one version of visual anthropology, you are creating a film about your research, and in another version of visual anthropology, you are actually analyzing previous visual media with the anthropological perspective. And those are the main two ways that visual anthropology exists and is conducted. Now, throughout my research this week, there was a term that kept coming up, and this term was ethnographic film. And I was like, is that the same thing as visual anthropology? I'm not sure. So I did a mini investigation of ethnographic film. And ethnographic film is actually this like subcategory of visual anthropology. I'm actually going to read you guys the technical definition of it right now so you guys can move forward in life and not be super confused on what exactly ethnographic film is. But essentially, an ethnographic film is a nonfiction film, often similar to a documentary film, and historically it was shot by Western filmmakers dealing with non-Western people and sometimes associated with anthropology. So this term can exist outside of the space that is anthropology. Now, the final thing that I really want to touch on before letting you all go is some examples of visual anthropology. Maybe this is something you want to study and you're not sure. The best way to figure that out is to go watch some films, right? Do some research on visual anthropology, figure out what your work would actually look like. And anthropologists that you probably know and love were actually involved in visual anthropology. Again, I have a list here. I keep checking my computer, but you know, can't memorize everything. And some of those anthropologists are Margaret Mead, the Queen. She has a film called Trance and Dance in Bali. You could totally go check that out. Then, of course, there is Zora Neale Hurston. If you did not know, she was an anthropology major in college. How fantastic is that? She is most known, I believe, for writing Their Eyes Were Watching God. So if you've read that, that's who wrote it. And she made a film called Commandment Keeper Church. I think you guys can fact check me in the comment section down below on that one. But I guess she also has some fieldwork footage available online if you guys wanted to check that out. Then, of course, there is John Marshall. He had quite a few films. This one that I found was called The Hunters. And then those are all kind of old, you know, that stuff is old. If you guys are looking for documentary, photography, anthropology stuff, go check out Robert Lemelson's work. He is actually a professor at UCLA, but he has made some really awesome films that are exactly what you would probably be looking for. Visual anthropology, talking about some really amazing topics. And I'll link all that stuff down below so you guys don't have to do any of the work. And really quickly, I did want to throw in here that if this is something that you guys are interested in, a lot of colleges that have anthropology programs actually do offer visual anthropology classes. I took a course in my sophomore year called Documentary Photography, and we got to learn about the history of photography and how that is interrelated to how anthropology grew as a field, and we got to read really awesome stuff. So if this is something that you're interested in, you definitely could pursue it in higher education. Now, I think that is actually all I have to say on visual anthropology today. If you guys have any more questions about it, or just honestly have any information that you would like to share to this greater conversation, please leave that in the comment section down below. People come to these videos to learn, so leave all that great info down there. And finally, I just wanted to thank everyone who voted on my poll that I posted on the community tab about which discipline of anthropology you guys are all interested in. And we had a striking amount of cultural anthropologists in our midst, so I will definitely keep getting videos like that out. But of course, I will not be ignoring any of the other disciplines. And yes, tell me what you guys want to see in the future. I will leave you all here. It is midterms week, so I don't actually have a ton of time to edit this video. So I will see you guys all next Sunday. I hope you're having a great week. And yeah, stay safe out there. All right, you guys. Bye.